Would you or would you not date a guy who was unwilling to, say, down the road, say when you're in love, you've been dating for a while, even married, who would be unwilling to sacrifice his life for you? Say in a hypothetical scenario, he can take the bullet or you can take the bullet, but he wasn't willing to take the bullet for you. Would you date that man?
I think I would expect him to protect me in that way if we've been dating for a long time, yeah.
Okay. Like so you would not date the guy who was unwilling to take a bullet for you?
Yeah, but I wouldn't expect him to do that if we were only dating for like a couple months, you know?
Okay.
Like, it's like something down the road.
Okay. So like a year?
I don't think I would expect him to do that, like sacrifice his life for me after dating for a year.
Mm-hmm.
I would want him to, but I wouldn't expect it.
I wonder, let me ask you a follow-up question. He doesn't have to sacrifice his life, but he does have to do something, and in order to protect you, he ends up with a, it wouldn't be a life or death scenario, but he ends up with, is this one out of focus, Nick?
A little bit.
The one that's on her?
Yeah, no,
I'll change it. Trying to think. He,
Like a disability?
yeah, like I don't know. He
Like
loses
vegetative or
he loses
paralyzed or
he
whatever.
loses a leg.
Yeah. What's the question?
He
Life or
loses
leg?
he loses a leg to
Same.
prevent you from losing a leg.
Leg for leg.
And what's the question?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like there's
Like,
There's
would
a-
she
I
continue
don't know.
dating him even
Am
though
I-
he's
think of the
disabled?
scenario.
Is that what you're saying?
there's a
Like,
car
would she-
coming. There's a car coming, and like you're in the street, and if he doesn't grab you and move you out of the way, your leg gets crushed. But if he grabs you and moves you out of the way, his leg gets crushed.
What's the question?
So if the guy was unwilling to do that, would you date him? Like to make that sacrifice? God, I don't know if this makes sense, but.
I think I screwed him, Ryan. Sorry.
What do you mean?
I just made you forget what you said.
No, it wasn't your fault. Go ahead and answer the question.
That's like a hard question. I would be willing to date him still, yeah.
Would it?
Moving along.
Okay, yeah.
Well, you're saying like we're in love. Yes, I would be willing to date him.
If he wouldn't.
No, would
If
he
he
wouldn't?
If he wouldn't give his life,
that's
or
I
break his
really
leg
don't
or
care
lose his
that
leg.
much about that. I mean, of course, like it's a nice thought that he would like, die for you or whatever. But like I would do the same for my family. If he doesn't want to, I just it's not on my top priority, I guess.
So like you would date someone who would sit there and watch you get your leg destroyed
Or mauled
It's
by
just
a
a
bear.
leg.
and not attempt
It's
to
just a
help
leg.
you.
For literally for that
Okay.
reason exactly, because I know I would do the same thing. I would not be dating that person anymore. Like if you're not
Right.
the same dedication and like to save me, or whatever, we save each other.
I
in a
don't know.
way,
I just think
I
in
would
that
not be
kind of a
dating.
situation, like people have all kinds of different reactions. And do you have a problem with me like speaking?
No.
Because
no.
she went into she went into her reasons. You guys are asking me questions, so I just will not answer anything. That's fine. Go ahead.
Okay.
I answered my question. Yes, I would be willing to date him still. I said that.
If he wasn't willing to take a bullet for you.
Yes.
Okay.
I said no.
You wouldn't. Okay.
I wouldn't be willing to date someone who isn't willing to take a bullet for me. Because I don't think willingness has to do with, like, capability, if that makes sense. Like, say, like, in my relationship, I appreciate that Frankie and I would both be willing to die for each other. But when it comes to, in terms of capability, like we've discussed, that he'd be more capable to be mentally stronger to live on and take care of our children. If that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense, but
What about
Yeah.
you?
I feel like I wouldn't if I was in a place where I felt like I would be willing to take a bullet for them and they weren't willing to take a bullet for me, then we wouldn't be at the same level of, I guess, love or dedication to one another, so I would stop.
I wouldn't take a bullet for someone personally, so I
You-
wouldn't
you
expect
would
him.
or you wouldn't?
I wouldn't, so I wouldn't like.
You wouldn't expect it.
I wouldn't expect them to do it for me.
Okay.
And you want to
What-
be a cop?
He got me. I got it. I would not date a man that's not willing to sacrifice at any of those levels for me. And I think my boyfriend, day one, would have still jumped in front of a car or whatever. He walks on the side of the street that's closer to cars.
Oh, right.
I expect that with reciprocated
Okay, I see.
honor and respect to him.
Yeah.
But see, like,
So the reasoning for the boyfriend walking closer to the side of the road is what?
Protection.
Is-
Sidewalk
yeah.
rule
So
from
he's-
a car.
he's the
Yeah.
one
From
that's
what? So, okay, you would
From
want...
If a
being
van
hurt.
drives
Yeah.
up to you and snatches you because you're on the side of the road.
Okay, what?
Or if someone runs
he's
into
in between me and the
Okay,
thing
so
that's
you'd
most
want-
likely to cause harm.
So you'd want the guy to like get run over by the car versus you. He'd be in a better position to protect you from that.
I want a
At
man.
the sacrifice of him getting run over instead, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Obviously, I would hate that, but I
Right.
wouldn't want to be with a man who wouldn't do that.
Now going back around this way to the table, do you think it would be like less attract? Maybe you would still date the guy, but would it be less attractive and would he be less masculine if he was unwilling to sacrifice his life for his girlfriend, wife, whatever it may be?
Yeah, that's unattractive.
No.
Don't care at all? Okay.
Yeah, I think it'd be less attractive.
Less attractive.
I think it would be less masculine. Actually, I don't know because like it doesn't make me more masculine that I'm willing to take a bullet for the person that I love, doesn't it?
It was attractive or
Does
not
it-
attractive, though.
yeah, does it
Not
make him
necessarily
less
masculine. Or,
attractive to you if
Okay,
he's not
yeah,
willing
sure
to
it's
do it?
unattractive, but I don't think it's like you should expect it from like the start
Yeah.
of dating.
Less attractive.
I don't know if you heard the question.
Sorry,
or-
what was the question?
Would it be a man who is unwilling to sacrifice his life for you? Would you view him as less attractive or less masculine?
Maybe slightly not fulfilling his role as like a protector, but I don't know. Maybe because I've been independent for so long, I take on that role more myself. So I just don't see it as like a deal breaker. But yes, maybe a little.
I don't see myself ever being in the position to like sacrifice my life for a man. So I feel like it's kind of a double standard to expect him to do that for me if I'm not willing to do it for him. So at the end of the day, like I don't see that as less attractive.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I don't know if we go full into this convo here, if I reveal my position on it.
Do you want to start going through some of the tabs?
Yeah,
YouTube video, tweets.
the tweets are out because, well, you can, yeah. We're not going to do the YouTube video. Was there something else we were going to pull up? I'm trying to remember.
Transformations, but
Nah, we need to do, well, I mean, on this note, I think it's actually, so if you're a woman and you're like a traditional woman and you want a guy to protect you, I think that's totally valid. But if you're not a traditional woman, you can't be demanding a man to be, you can't be like upset if a guy wouldn't be willing to risk his life, not risk his life for you.
yeah.
Even if you would do the same for him.
But like, it's crazy to me because like those of you who answered bear, like you'd want your boyfriend to sacrifice his life for you, but y'all pick bear over man.
Well, this is your boyfriend that like you love and like you're devoted to, and if
Not a random man.
Yeah,
Not a
exactly. Not a random man in the
I would
woods.
go as far to say that I would expect a man on a first date to act in that way.
To
Really?
sacrifice
On a
his life
first
for you.
On a
date?
first date.
On a very first date?
I would
Hold on, let
expect,
me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Let me explain a bit further, but I have a follow-up.
like, I would expect a man to step in and be a protector in any scenario.
Even if it means losing his life on the first date.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, let me ask you a question, though. So we heard from her earlier
Okay.
that she went on 30 dates in 1 month time. Sometimes she even went on 2 dates in a day. Now, do you think that a man, knowing that, for example, let's say she went on a date with a guy, it was the lunch date, and that man knew that right afterwards she was going on a dinner date that very night with a different man. Do you think that a man in that situation should sacrifice his life for a woman who's dating multiple other men at the same time?
I don't think it necessarily has to do anything with like a romantic relationship. It's more of a man's role and a man's
So he should do it for a stranger even?
yes.
A man should even sacrifice his life for a total stranger?
Yes.
Let me ask you a question. You're in
Okay.
a relationship, right?
Yes.
Your boyfriend, would it be
I'm so glad I'm not dating donated $200. If I was married to a hormonal, raging, entitled, non-submissive 304. If someone attacked us and it was life or death, I would shoot her in the chest so the attacker didn't have to live with the pain.
Okay.
That makes a lot of sense.
So thank you. I'm so glad I'm not dating. Good to see you in the chat. If you had a boyfriend, you currently have a boyfriend.
Yes.
You've been dating for 1.5 years. You would want, let's say do you want to have children with this guy one day? Let's say you have kids, right? Would you want him to potentially, let's say he saw some conflict going on and he was going to do the heroic thing, try to get involved. He actually ends up dying by trying to break up this conflict. Say it was a woman, he was trying to save a woman. Would that be worse, or would that be better or worse for your family for him to go and die but do the heroic thing?
It would be heartbreaking, but I actually am very confident that he would do that.
You would still, well, let's say he would do that.
So he's in the service.
Would that
so
be
he would.
Well, that's another point. Like military people are doing that every single day for strangers.
And that's kind of like one of the
We're talking about a different context here, but so that would.
No, we would not be better off without him.
Okay.
That's the answer.
But you would still desire for him to do that?
I think for the protection of someone else, yeah.
Back to the original question was, so like, for example, how she's going on 30 dates with, you went on 30 first dates, if I recall correctly, in a 1 month period.
Did, yeah.
You went,
I was meeting people.
You occasionally went on, right, but like.
Let's phrase it correctly though. I was meeting people. They were first dates. I wasn't dating multiple men like a serial dater.
Okay, fine.
That's what you're like,
were some of the men you
posturing. No.
Well, it's kind of, I mean, this characterization's a bit.
We're not dating.
Not really relevant.
You're kind of like weaponizing information.
I'm not weaponizing.
Kind of.
How am I weaponizing?
It's like it's making it out to be like this, like these women that are dating all of these men all at one time, and should men really even be like protecting them? And I'm of the opinion, like a man that I met for a first date, I have no expectations of him. I could be a perfect stranger, to him, and vice versa,
well,
right?
Yeah. So the point I'm arguing though is that, like, as a woman, in order for you to feel like you're entitled to this extreme sacrifice on the man's part, I think you should be trying to move in like a. So okay, men's.
I have moved.
Hold on,
you asked
hold
me
on.
about my early
I don't think so.
Yeah, you
but
did.
Hold on, we can get back into that. But so a man willing to sacrifice his life for a woman would be the ultimate form of chivalry. There is no greater sacrifice a man can make than to lay down his life for a woman.
That's biblical.
So what is if there's this expectation on men to be chivalrous, there ought to be a corresponding expectation on women to be ladies. And I would argue, in order to be a respectable lady, to be deserving of a man to sacrifice his life for you, you certainly can't be dating multiple men at the same time, even going just on multiple first dates. So in this scenario with her, if I was on a first date with a woman and I was inclined to sacrifice my life for a woman, I would advise a man that it would be ludicrous to sacrifice your life for a woman who has a date planned with another man right after you. You're going to do the ultimate chivalrous thing, die for her, and she's going to see another guy later that night. That would be crazy to me. But under your framework, you think a guy should die for a woman who's going to go date another guy that night? Is that your position?
So
just answer the question. Do you think he should still die under those circumstances?
Yes. Can I give more info?
So your answer is yes, though.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So I also, to put it into more of like my mindset, is like I had this whole, epiphany kind of thing in college. We had this like active shooter scenario training in one of my classes. And they talked about like how basically like you should be willing to jump on that shooter.
The men should.
No, just anyone. So I was thinking through, they're like, whoever's closest to the door, they're coming in the door, the best way to stop that active shooter is to attack that person. And so I was like, dang, like that is crazy. Like that is such a challenge. Like, I don't know if I could do that, blah, blah, blah. But like, it really got into my head, and I thought about it a lot. And I'm like, man, I could protect the other people that are there. I'm the closest person there. Like, what am I going to do? Like, that is...
This isn't really relevant.
I'm just saying that I would want to do the same thing. So the man, no matter who the girl's going on a date with afterward...
He should still
do it. Because if I were in that position, I'm not going to be like, wait, are you a felon? Wait, like, are you, like, whatever? And
you can't know everybody's history.
Wait,
Like-
so do you hold yourself to that same standard?
Yes.
Right,
on
but
a
like
man?
let's zoom out
Yeah.
and like let's just actually analyze it. If we know all the facts, should a man here? I'll just give you the extreme example and see where there's logical consistency here. Let's assume that man's going on a first date with a girl and she's currently sleeping with 3 other men. If we're zoomed out and we're doing an analysis on that situation, should the man then sacrifice his life for a woman who's currently having sexual intercourse with 3 other men?
I think that's kind of insane.
Let her answer
Sorry.
the question.
She's coming from an
no.
unbiased place. She's
Answer
coming
the
from a
question.
place of human to human.
Yeah,
Like, she's
so-
not putting labels or notions
Hold
or
on.
history.
You're putting a label on a man that he needs to act in a certain way. He needs to sacrifice his life. I'm putting the label
We
on
sacrifice our lives as women too by having children.
Okay, that's
we have
that's
one of the
logical-
highest like
logical fallacy.
maternal death
We're
rates.
getting into a logical fallacy here. That's
it's not a fallacy.
Yes. Whataboutism. What about us women who have to sacrifice in this other way that's totally unrelated to the scenario I'm giving?
It's life still.
No.
Not
Did you-
die.
have
Many
you
women
had
die
children-
in childbirth.
Of all the men that you've had first dates with, did you have children with every single one of those men?
No, and I
Okay.
also didn't sleep with every single one of those men, and I also didn't.
Right, but
wasn't,
she's making the argument that a man, even on a first date, he should sacrifice his life for that woman.
She's coming from an unbiased perspective.
That I'm not really following, but so even in the scenario I painted, the woman is sleeping with 3 other men. Should the man lay down his life for that woman?
I think a respectable man still would.
So, okay, and is a man sacrificing his life for a woman chivalrous?
Yep.
Okay, so why do men have to be chivalrous for, would you agree with me that a woman who's currently sleeping with 3 men and going on a first date with this new guy, would you consider that the what's the right word? There's not chivalry.
What,
There's not
ladylike thing to
chivalry.
do?
Yeah, there's not
No,
chivalry
yeah.
for one. Would that be ladylike of her?
No.
So are women who are not ladylike deserving of chivalry?
Yes.
Why?
Because I believe in grace, and I also like
What?
part of.
But why would women have grace for men in that scenario?
Well
That's
put.
crazy, because you're literally saying, well, men should have grace for women, and men should have this role in society where it's their natural inclination to provide and protect and lay down their life when there's no expectation on the women to do the same, to have any
I have
reciprocity.
expectations for women. I have expectations for everyone.
But in this
What's-
scenario,
In this scenario,
No, go ahead.
no, in this scenario, she's sleeping with 3 men, so she's not meeting that expectation, and yet there is the expectation on the man. That's what I'm saying, and I agree with this point. Listen, there's a lot of things I don't agree with, but I totally agree with the fact that you cannot expect a man to be a gentleman if you are not behaving as a lady, and I have learned that lesson the hard way.
so you
Men-
believe in she's asking for it kind of things?
Whoa, what?
like if she, because you're
What?
just
Where
like
are you,
if she's
are you talking about SA?
like you're like, oh, if she's
No.
not acting like a lady, then a man doesn't have to act like a gentleman.
That has
that's
nothing
a-
to do with
that's a-
asking. That's
Okay,
a
it's extreme
massive
take. It's extreme
stretch.
take. But anyway,
Well, you're warping. I think
No, you're completely
what
warping
she
what
said.
I'm saying. And
Okay,
if I
okay.
She
can-
asked
sorry.
a question.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, but that's a crazy question to
having
ask
conversation.
based on what I am saying. That's like such a far leap.
so if
What
she's
I'm
sleeping
saying
with
is,
3 guys, you think she deserves to die?
What?
I never said she deserves to die, but in
Okay.
this scenario, there's a car coming. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm not
okay.
saying
Well,
that she
then you
deserves
think
the
She
car.
shouldn't expect a chivalrous man.
She shouldn't expect it. Why would a man give
Yes.
up his entire life, his existence on this beautiful planet for a woman who doesn't give a shit enough to date only him? That's crazy. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I believe he should have the inclination as a male.
I
but-
agree with you. Like, personally, I would give my life for one regardless.
No, Mason, don't.
Don't. No,
Listen, a man
well,
should
no,
have
no.
that-
It's because I'm a man of extreme conviction.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
most men are not men of extreme conviction. It's
But-
very much like, why would I be chivalrous to a woman who is not going to be a lady for me? Like, there is so much effort that is being put on
Well, it's
me.
the same thing as,
so
like-
much expectation as a man, but there is very little expectation upon a woman.
And listen, I think a man if he is following the true, like, traditional masculine path, I think he should have the inclination, but he should have the self-respect to know, like, hey, I'm not being treated with reciprocity here. There is not a woman who is meeting this expectation as a lady, and therefore that's insane to give up my fucking existence on this beautiful planet for a woman who doesn't give a shit about me.
That goes both ways.
And he should have the inclination, but that doesn't mean that it's right for him to do it. Listen, I feel all the time, I think of these active shooter situations, I feel like I'd jump in front of a bullet for fucking anybody because I'm a caring, nurturing, loving person. But I'm telling you, when it's on a date, like, I don't understand why women are expecting men to open doors, pay the bill, show up, and do all these things when women are out there texting 5,000 men at the same time and setting up all these different dates and sleeping with all these different people.
Okay, but let's not demonize women. Men are doing it too. Like,
we're
like
not.
I said,
It's just we
this
unfortunately
entire
we're
lives
talking.
both ways.
We're not taking these.
Open the door's not
Men
that
are
serious
dogs.
either.
Men
Yes,
are
men
dogs.
are
bare
dogs.
minimum.
Listen, men are
Raise your
dogs
standards.
too.
But, hold
we're
on.
talking about, in this scenario, the expectation that's on men versus women. We're not talking about how men, I know men who've slept around. Listen, every time that I slept around with a man, there was a man waiting right there to exploit my brokenness. So yes, I know what you're saying. But what I'm saying is I didn't act like a lady, so they didn't act like gentlemen, and I shouldn't have expected them to act like gentlemen.
So then you feel like you deserved it because of that, or what?
I think that
I'm not following.
I think that I was not behaving in a way that is
If you're
conducive.
not a lady, why do you
You're not going
expect
to be treated
a
like
man?
a man to be a gentleman.
Yeah, that's
Men aren't obligated
it's
to give
wrong.
their life up for a stranger.
It's just
And they're not
morally
obligated
wrong.
to open doors and do all these things for you.
Yeah.
They do it because they want to do it for a lady who cares for them, who is willing to put in the same effort on her end, maybe in a different capacity because she's a woman and not a man. But I'm saying it's supposed to be a mutual thing here. It's not supposed to be men do this amazing chivalrous thing all the time and take care of us and treat us well, and yet women can do whatever the hell they want.
I don't think anyone proposed that either, though. I
We're
think
talking about
it's
a
been
man.
I think
shifted
that's what our
into that.
society
It's-
kind of shifted towards, though.
I
It
think
is.
it's just crazy that you can sit here and say that there would be an expectation on a man to sacrifice his life, ultimate chivalry, for a woman who's just
Taking dick
totally
from anybody
degenerate,
will-
who's a total degenerate,
Yes.
who's not a lady, who's not moving in a traditional way, who's currently having sexual intercourse with 3 other men. How, like, I don't understand the logic there.
Like, he should have the inclination as a man, like, yes, I have this inclination as my natural masculinity. I do want to provide and protect. But, like, we are never going to progress as a society if we don't look at how both of us have a responsibility to act in a certain way towards one another. You can't expect something from one gender.
Do you want to respond to anything?
Yeah, I mean, I get, like, I see your point of view.
It's unfair.
I
It's
think-
just
And
unfair.
Okay.
Yeah.
You-
I see your point of view.
Jesus walked this planet and literally went and talked to prostitutes, tax collectors, all of the sinners in the streets, right?
Yeah.
And he did not hesitate to die for all of humanity.
Yeah.
So this
What?
is, if you guys are talking
But
about like
he's
Christianity,
Jesus.
biblical values, things like that, where literally, you know.
But Jesus didn't marry the prostitutes, and he saved them
What?
through grace.
We're not
Like,
talking
this
about
is
anybody
completely
marrying anybody. We're
other
talking
than-
about
if you didn't-
principles.
if you
Well,
didn't
what
jump
does
in
that
front of
have
a
to
car,
do with this relationship scenario?
if you didn't jump in
Nothing.
front of a car, I wouldn't like hold that against you. You know, like I.
Well,
Still, my point.
what about the bullet? The bullet.
The bullet. If you didn't jump in front of the bullet for some random girl you just went on a date for, I wouldn't be like. That
You
was
wouldn't be
the-
dinged as a man.
Yeah, I would just be like, that's a crazy situation.
A lot of
We're in
women.
Yeah.
A lot of women do want a man who'd be willing to
Yeah.
sacrifice themselves for them.
And I do too, but
And
I
you are,
wouldn't.
right.
I just wouldn't like berate you for that decision
Oh.
if you didn't, right? Jump in
Okay.
front of a car or a bullet or whatever.
Would it change if that man's like your dad or your brother? I would expect my dad.
if
or
my dad
brother.
didn't jump in front of a bullet.
Yeah,
I wouldn't
Of
expect. I
course,
wouldn't expect
but
the
that's a
boyfriend,
different
but I would expect
scenario.
my dad. to do
Yeah,
it.
yeah.